Greetings, viewers, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Accidental Farmer podcast, the podcast that brings you the real dirt on farming. Today, I'm honored and privileged to have with me Charles Warria. Charles Warria is a development strategist, ecosystem builder, and value chain specialist with over 2 decades of experience in designing and implementing transformative market systems across Africa. A self-described dot connector, Charles works at the intersection of private enterprise, agriculture, water, and digital innovation, helping small and medium enterprises unlock growth and create meaningful social and economic impact. Passionate about inclusive business models, Charles has spent his career linking smallholder farmers, traders, and processors to opportunities that expand market access, productivity, and shared prosperity. He's equally at home in boardrooms and on smallholder farms, working with governments, development partners, and enterprises to design sustainable solutions that drive sector transformation. A founding member of the Evaluation Society of Kenya and an active member of several international learning networks, including AfriEA, Outcome Mapping Learning Community, and AfriCop MFDR, Charles combines analytical rigor with storytelling flair. He believes that data should not just inform decisions, but tell compelling stories of change. Today, Charles supports enterprises and organizations across Africa to design business models, strategic plans, and impact measurement frameworks that truly make a difference. Welcome to the show Charles.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Good, I'm great. You?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Super.
Good. So today we want to talk a little bit about what you do and why you do what you do. So we'll start with your journey, and you can tell us about why you said you're a generalist and a dot connector.
Yeah.
And that you have a vast array of things from agriculture to the whole digital and technology.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what is your journey like? How did you get into doing these things?
Right. So when I started this journey back in 2001, Israel campus, I was in the health sector.
Okay.
Yeah, I started my work in the health sector. A friend of mine, Brent Hanson, an American, got me to do a study for him on youth and HIV/AIDS.
On
youth and HIV/AIDS.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
In Nairobi, in a couple of cities around Nairobi.
Okay.
And what he wanted to do was him and his friend then, Mike Mutungi, had started an organization called I Choose Life Africa.
Okay.
And they were working with young people in universities on prevention, abstinence, and use of condoms, ABC. But basically promoting HIV prevention among young people. That was almost at the height of HIV. And so it was important that the message gets to young people, at least to prevent the intergenerational infections and that kind of thing. So I found myself in the HIV sector, in the health sector. I worked with Choose Life Africa for a while, and then I moved to Mild Me International, a British NGO that worked now not with youth, but with HIV patients. And what we were doing was we were promoting one, health system strengthening for HIV/AIDS treatment, but number two is promoting uptake of ARVs among HIV and home-based care. So I found myself deep in the thick of things, working with the HIV patients in communities on home-based care, and uptake of treatment and building systems, especially M&E systems that tracked health outcomes. After a while, I went into a USAID program that then worked with OVCs, orphan and vulnerable children. What happened is during that peak time for HIV, a lot of families, young families, died, and therefore we had hundreds of thousands of orphan and vulnerable children in child-ready households. So I shifted gear into now looking at economic empowerment for child-ready households. So we ran programs that supported local organizations that supported OVCs, orphan and vulnerable children. So I found myself in a shift from home-based care now to economic and household economic empowerment, We're looking at income generation activities for households. Eventually, I moved from there into now a different organization that now was supporting SMEs. So I built this passion for there is something about small businesses and how small businesses can support small households. So I was getting into the nexus of business and economic livelihoods and economic empowerment. And then, I found myself into value chains because then now for businesses to work properly, they needed to fit within certain sectors and certain value chains. So with the new organization, Double, we were then looking at how can value chains support livelihoods? How can value chains work better? And all that. So I found myself there. Later on, I moved on to the funding spectrum. I joined ODI, and we were in partnership with DI. We were managing a fund, British. I joined FCDO, the NEDA fund, called DAP, Drivers of Accountability Program. So I moved on to now a completely different sector. It was called the PFM sector, the public finance management, because then what we were doing was we were giving local organizations, local NGOs in the governance space, financial support to then promote public finance management. So the conversation then shifted, to now no longer SMEs, but now looking at public sector and how finances in the public sector are utilized by the duty bearers, and how can the right holders hold them to account for public budget. I later on joined Deloitte, and it all changed again. So I was now properly in the private sector. We were running this African Young Leadership Program, and so we're looking at 13 countries, different young people from 13 countries being capacity built as fellows, and what are they doing with the skills and that they're acquiring from this training. So again, a different focus, but also I found myself in another mix of BDS, business development services. We had a partnership then with Citibank to support Citibank and KCDF to support small businesses, again linked and driven by young people in East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. So I found myself back into small business conversation and financing. Then I realized I've been in the space for small SMEs and value chains and financing since 2011. Oscillating between different kinds of spaces, but and across different kinds of sectors. When I left Deloitte, I joined Kenya Markets Trust, and there the conversation, Kenya Markets Trust was implementing an FCDO program called the Kenya Markets Assistance Program, basically looking at how do you grow markets, how do you use market systems approach to grow markets. But to grow markets is to get into uncharted market spaces, so uncharted sectors, find what we call then market actors, support market actors to then go into new areas. And when they go into new areas, they break new grounds. When they break new grounds, they catalyze entry by other actors, into so that's why you call them market actors, to catalyze to trialize new solutions and then catalyze entry by other actors into that space, and break up that particular value chain. And we did that with over 100 market actors in Kenya across many sectors, water, service delivery, livestock, agricultural inputs, dairy, and all that. And then later on, I moved on into a program called Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund, where again we're doing the same thing, different kinds of sectors, taking a catalytic approach to funding certain organizations or companies to catalyze growth. Yeah, to catalyze growth in that. So that's my journey really, up to where I am today. Having that passion on market systems, SMEs, growth, and value chains. Yeah.
Fantastic. I want to focus a little bit on value chains.
Yeah.
Because we talk about agriculture,
Yeah.
and value chains are quite critical to that whole process.
Yeah.
So many of our listeners are smallholder farmers and agripreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And in simple terms, then, what does value chain development mean, and why does it matter?
Right. Whenever I think about value chains, I look at, I go back to the agrarian revolution in Britain in the 18th century.
Yes.
And back then, the British realized that as the population was growing, the food system wasn't set up to feed the population. So something needed to check, and that sparked the agrarian revolution, a period when there was massive innovations, in trying to produce food differently. They looked at the farms and they say, how can these farms produce differently? There's this issues around crop rotation, issues around pest control, issues around improvements of breeds, so that they can produce more to not just feed the population, but also, produce surplus to sell. That's the where I draw the concept of this my understanding of value chains. That value chains therefore look and say, the way we are set up now, the way we are producing now, is it efficient to meet our needs and beyond? The way we are producing in the farms, the way we are getting inputs into the farms, the way we are producing, the way we are aggregating. So we look and say, are we, for example, in an acre, are we getting what we should get in an acre, or are we getting far below what we should get? If we're getting far below what we should get, what do we need to do in that acre to get what we need to get? But once we get it, how can we efficiently aggregate it and efficiently trade it and add value to it? So what when you talk about value chain, is a connection of nodes that look at from what something has been produced to how it's morphing in its value, to by the time it's getting consumed.
Okay.
So instead of for example, producing mango and selling mango as mango,
Yes.
you can produce mango, but then you realize that we can then begin to morph how mango is sold.
Yes.
We sell it as fresh mango. We sell it as dry mango. We sell it as mango juice. We sell it as mango powder. We can sell it as different kinds of things.
Yeah.
Now,
There are
each
many derivatives.
yes,
Yeah, or
yes.
things that come out of it.
each morphing contributes to value addition. So if we don't sell all of it as fresh, okay, and we go into juice, we save ourselves the loss of those that have gotten rotten because they were just fresh.
Yeah.
Now, if we dry them, we save ourselves the loss of fresh mangoes going bad. So we dry them. If we make them into pulp, we save ourselves the loss. So the pulp then will be used for juice. If we dry them and take them into powder, we save ourselves the loss. So each modification of the original contributes to addressing a potential loss. See, but not just loss; it also contributes to longer shelf life. So this we can use this mango. It's simply going back to the traditional methods, where if you went hunting and you knew you didn't eat the whole carcass the same day, you dry it. And when you dry it, you can eat it longer. You see, so that was tradition. That was pre-colonial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the same thing is we now come back and say, how can we address potential loss by prolonging how we utilize this particular commodity through creation of different versions of it, and different version has a different shelf life, and we can use it for long beyond seasons. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a crop that is, one of the most widely grown crops in Kenya, tomatoes. Okay. So we hear that tomatoes about 50 post-harvest losses.
Yeah.
Estimated about 50%.
50% cuts across all crops in Kenya.
Oh, okay.
All crops.
But I want to talk about tomatoes because they're extremely vulnerable.
Yeah.
And they're one of the most widely grown. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Onions and tomatoes. But I want to specifically deal with the tomatoes.
Yeah.
So let's assume that tomatoes have a 50 to 60% post-harvest loss. And most of it is aesthetics or things that, it can't be fit for consumption for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So a solution there would be value addition, or getting into one of the value chain verticals that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
Yet we don't see that happening. I hear that we don't have a machine that can produce tomato paste in the country. Sun-dried tomatoes are still imported. Tomato paste is still imported. Yet we have this high level of waste. My question is, why aren't more smallholder farmers considering going to value addition, going to the value chain?
That's a good question, really. So, first is to understand who is a smallholder farmer in Kenya? A smallholder farmer in Kenya is a person who owns less than 2 acres.
Okay.
Less than 2 acres. And these are the majority.
Yeah.
They
They
are,
make the overwhelming majority of farmers in the country.
yes,
Yes.
yes. Less than 2 acres. Now, the less than 2 acres means that whatever they produce is small. So they produce in small quantities.
Yeah.
And therefore, their motivation, their primary motivation isn't to produce for commercial. Smallholder farmers' primary motivation is subsistence.
Okay.
They produce to eat, to feed themselves, first and foremost. At the harvest time, they realize that they have more than they can consume. And so they go to sell in the market. They're all selling the same thing in the market. If you go to a season, they're all selling the same tomatoes in the same area.
Yeah.
Yes, because they all realize, oh, we produce surplus.
Yeah.
In my view, the problem is not the smallholder farmers. The problem is a lack of structured aggregation systems. So that people who understand production systems, people who are able to use previous data to predict how harvests are going to happen, and then position themselves, with investments and with equipment during that season to say, look, we are seeing tomatoes coming. A million smallholder farmers in this region have been planting tomatoes because they think it's a tomato season. Some of them plant to eat, but they're going to have some surplus. They're going to bring it to the market because they're all selling tomatoes to themselves. Nobody's going to buy, so a lot of it's going to go bad. So why don't we be the people who buy the tomatoes from them during that season? We set up two things. One, aggregation centers, okay, to then mop out these tomatoes during that season. Number two, we then set up value addition processing plants. You see, so that once we have bought it, we then go, we process it, we dry it, we make it into tomato paste, and all these things.
Ketchup,
Yes,
sauces, yeah.
and then we store it. You see, we will then release it into the market later on when tomato is out of season. You see, but also number two is part of that processing is also setting up cold chain. We have realized over and over and over that cold chain enables, or rather, it prolongs the life
Yes.
and shelf life. Once we get the tomatoes, we don't have to make tomato paste. We can freeze the tomato, okay, using cold chain. Once we freeze it, it remains there. When the market needs it, we release it into the market. Okay. Those are basic investments that we do not require smallholder farmers to worry about. So smallholder farmers should focus on producing and produce to their best. But once they have produced, aggregators should come in. That's why value chains are structured into nodes. That after production, then you have aggregators, then you have processors, then you have retailers, then you have consumers. So every node needs to be strengthened and capacity built and properly resourced. Aggregation in Kenya is not properly resourced. You see, because people haven't seen it. What we have is brokers, and brokers are opportunists. Okay, they will pop up, whenever, take whatever they can, leave whatever they don't want. The loss is on the farmer and that kind of thing. So they're not really promoting growth of the value chain. They are benefiting from the inefficiencies in the value chain. What we need, Brother Joe, is resourced aggregators with equipment, with capacity to understand seasonality, to understand production patterns, and to set up, to address through value addition.
You have traveled extensively on the continent. Have you seen that anywhere else? Have you seen it work? Is there a model that maybe Kenya can borrow from?
No, Africa is averagely deficient in the value chain development. Because as you rightly put it in the start, we have put expectations on producers to be the ones to address issues of post-harvest.
Yeah.
You see, so we haven't seen now we're seeing in Kenya situations of warehousing, warehouse receipting system, and I did discuss this with other people in the past that while the government is through the warehousing receipting council is trying to address that agenda, the uptake and growth of warehouse receipting must be privatized. It must be a private sector driven, so that people see investments in. You need to be to see an investment opportunity in setting up a warehouse. When you set up a warehouse, you fit it up so that you are able to get whatever harvest comes from that region, put it into the warehouse, charge the farmer for the storage, okay, value add to that product, okay? Figure out the market, take it to the market. If the farmer needs to get some loan from the receipt that you issue to them on the value of the product, then they can get a loan and continue to produce. But you have the power to then utilize that product while it's still within your custody to take it to the market. But that has to be a private sector driven, private investment driven. Now, that's what's lacking. That aggregation and value addition isn't so properly resourced. We've not seen it as a business. One is because generally, Africans don't see agriculture as a business. So investors like Joe are not in that space, people aren't seeing agriculture as a business. People see farmers as there, and farmers. Why do they all produce the same thing? You go to the market and there's rotting tomatoes everywhere, but we don't see our role. That I could play a role in addressing tomato loss. After farmers produce, I want farmers to produce, because what happens is when farmers experience extensive losses, they then stop producing. They reduce how much they produce. Then we go into a food scarcity, and then we go into importing. What we never understand, what we never asked ourselves is, those that we import from, how have they figured efficient production systems? We like to import from them. We import from South Africa a lot, but we haven't taken time to ask ourselves, what do they get right that we can't get right? And that's because they figured the link between the different kinds of nodes and specialization in the different kinds of nodes.
Yeah, but I agree. But if we look at farmers, for example, I'm a farmer.
Yeah.
I grow tomatoes. Maybe I grow on, it's small scale, or I'm a smallholder farming.
Yeah.
But for me, even producing 1 acre of tomatoes can be quite costly.
Yeah.
Then 60%, the 40% post-harvest loss is on the farm. It doesn't even make it off my farm.
Yeah.
Right? To me, it's a loss if I do nothing with it. I think that is the reason why many of us are now saying, let's forward integrate and start getting into value addition, because this is a straight loss. Nobody's coming. The brokers are not picking. Actually, this is as a result maybe of many things, but the brokers are definitely not going to pick those, what then translates into losses. They're going to take what is the best from my farm, best from my neighbor's farm. Whose role then is it to aggregate, to set up these systems, or proper aggregation system, or the nodes they're referring to?
Yeah.
If it's not the producers who now are taking it up upon themselves, and there are not really many producers. Many people who actually produce buy from the farmers.
So a couple of things. One, smallholder farmers are generally risk averse. Okay. So if they produce and experience losses, the next course of action is to reduce how much they produce. Yeah. Okay, the risk averse. So you're not gonna convince them to start setting up value addition, because they'll say, look, if I produced in 1 acre and I didn't sell of it, up next one, I'll produce in half an acre. Yeah. Now, so that's one.
Or not produce at all.
Or not produce at all.
Yeah.
Number two is the market incentive. That for smallholder farmers to continue to produce, even to go into aggregation, there needs to be a sustainable and structured market incentive. This product we're producing, this tomato, where are we going to sell it? Is there a market? Yeah. Now, oftentimes there is a market, Joe. Oftentimes there is a market. Yeah. For example, if you go to our groceries and our supermarkets, all of them have a fresh corner, where they're selling grocery. Yeah. They're selling fresh tomatoes, and all this. So if all these supermarkets, over 200 of them in the country, are selling all these, with all the branches, and then you have all the zucchinis and all the fresh produce markets and everything else all selling, why are smallholder farmers still undergoing losses? The question is, the point is, the lack of a structured market entry. For example, if I am an aggregator and I have the Jazza supermarket contract to supply fresh, I then need to translate that into production, because as an aggregator, I'm not producing. I need to find farmers to produce for me, okay? So that I make sure that on my shelves in the entire branches of Jazza, I supply every day fresh tomatoes.
Can fulfill your orders.
And fulfill the order. Yeah. But because I'm not a producer, I have to find a producer who can produce for me. Yeah. That's the missing gap. Yeah. The missing gap is, one, finding that aggregator, okay, who has that big contract, who can then lock in farmers. That's the first part. The second part is resourcing this aggregator to then resource the farmers so that farmers can produce for him the quantities they want and the quality they want at the time they want it. Okay? Now that means working with these smallholder farmers in their small plots to synchronize production for you, within the sequence that you want it. So because the tomato buyers at Jaza do not work with seasons. People don't eat tomatoes with seasons. People eat tomatoes every day. Yeah. So you're not going to give them a story that it's not a tomato season.
Yeah.
Now the work is upon you to then find the farmers, the groups of farmers, and sequence that production. Say, look, you and you are producing the way they do in onions. You and you are this season, you this season, this season, this season. I need to lock you down. One, so that you produce for me. Here are the inputs you need to be able to produce for me. Number two, you must not sell my tomatoes to anyone.
Yeah.
Yes, whether you are cash strapped or not, you must not, because I need it when I do need it. That kind of arrangement is still lacking in the country largely.
Yeah.
One is because smallholder farmers can be erratic. You see, to get them to produce within that sequence is a heavy investment because of the way they are. They're small plots. They're not very easily accessible. They're scattered. So to sort issues of weather and and rain and go into irrigation for them so that they can produce all season is resource heavy.
Yeah, it's an expensive undertaking. Yes.
So a lot of people would rather not. They'd rather find medium-sized farmers with minimal investments on irrigation and that kind of thing and pest control. You have your crop, and you can easily sequence them. So that automatically then cuts out smallholder farmers because the investments to get them to produce systematically, and trust them to be able to give you that the crop that you need when you need it, in the quantity you need it, the size you need it. You mean you have to spend a lot of time aggregating small, because in their 2-acre plots, they're not going to be producing only just for you. So they might end up giving you an eighth of the plot. Yeah. So for you to get your tomatoes, you have to get somebody, a transporter, to go farm by farm. It's more eighths of plots, get for you, different kinds. You have to spend a lot of time in monitoring to see, are they doing the right thing? Yeah. Is the crop healthy? Are they doing crop protection and that kind of thing? It is heavy work. So a lot of people avoid it, and then leave them on their side. We have to adopt agrarian revolution by government, coming into that space and sorting for the market what investors cannot sort. Yeah. So for example, this whole problem of infrastructure and trying to reach smallholder farmers with plots that are interconnected and hard to access. Ordinarily traders will not do that. But if the government broke the ground and created easy access, people would have incentives. So they say, I can go and get it, because the infrastructure is now there. I can find ways to aggregate it the way we do with milk. You have milk collectors running around the villages, collecting the milk, taking it to the nearest cooperative or cooling plant, okay? And then you get it from there. So if there would be what Kibaki tried before in putting together aggregation centers. So farmers know that once you have produced your stuff,
take the produce,
take it to the aggregation center. It will be collected from there. Farmers have extension services that are working, which broke down many years ago. So farmers are left on their own. When even when you'd go to the aggregation center, the sorting that you have to do on that crop would kill you. Because extension services broke down. So it would be a lot of work, but it can be done through agrarian revolution. When government comes back and said, provide the infrastructure support. We're not telling the government to grow, but provide the infrastructure support so that farmers can grow optimally.
So can farming at smallholder level be profitable, really, if it's really subsistence?
It can be profitable.
Okay.
It can be profitable
if
the farming practices are changed and if the market systems changes. See, for example, there are smallholders who are profitable. If take dairy, is profitable because they're organized into cooperatives. One is to get a working cooperative system. If you have a working cooperative system, for different kinds of commodities, including tomatoes.
Yeah.
If you have a working cooperative system, the cooperative then aggregates the needs of the farmers, okay? And then the cooperative becomes a vehicle to then bring in their inputs, you know?
Yeah.
I've seen situations, for example, in crops like coffee,
Yeah.
where the cooperative brings the inputs to the farmers, okay? And then it checks it off for when they get paid, okay? So the farmers don't have to worry about inputs at the time of planting. If each crop was organized into a cooperative system, okay, and the cooperatives linked to sustainable markets. For example, in this aggregation, cooperatives become the primary aggregator. Okay. All producers know, and the cooperative then builds in an extension system.
Okay.
So that their cooperative officers who then monitor their members
So there's
and how the members are
quality
producing.
control.
Yes. The cooperatives are able to set up model farms. So each member is encouraged to replicate the model farm, in your small plot where you're producing, replicate the model farm. The other role that the cooperatives would do is to then aggregate output so that we as traders would know. If I speak to Joe Cooperative, Joe Cooperative will tell me I have 200 members, okay? My 200 members are cultivating on 1,000 acres combined.
Yeah.
These 1,000 acres, every season we will give you 20 or 200 metric tons of 1,000 metric tons. So that we're able to know by simply mapping out agroecological zones, by cooperatives, by crop, I'm able to make my predictions and say, cooperative A run by Joe in Kiambu, I'm looking at 1,000 acres of this crop, giving me this 1,000 metric tons by this season. And they have sequenced it so that I know in May I'm able to get these metric tons of this crop in this region. That's lacking. What we have is erratic data. It's so erratic that even government doesn't have it. For example, the other day I was doing some writing on onions. I looked everywhere for data on onions, crop after crop, crop after crop.
Yeah.
I then realized it is hidden in the AFA statistics yearbook, classified as in maps, something called maps. See, medicinal and something crops.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I said, but what? The country produces a lot of thousands of metric tons of onions.
Yeah.
Why would you classify it under something called medicinal and medicinal and something?
Because there's no category that had been created.
Yes, and only AFA had that data. The KNBS doesn't have it in the national crop production report. They don't have it. These other guys don't have it. Even crop director don't have it. Yeah, nobody has it. Only AFA has it. So it tells you the lack of data in agriculture, also prevents investments, because then if I wanted to be an investor in the onion, and I've looked and said,
and there's no data to support
this,
the decision making in my investment.
Exactly. So you then realize maybe I'm going to importing of used clothes, and sell used clothes. At least there's some data on used clothes, and used cars. Yeah.
So how do we change the narrative, especially from a smallholder perspective?
One is the Kenya has been lagging behind for a long time in setting up a smallholder farmer database.
Behind who?
Behind African countries.
There are other countries that have much more data on smallholder farmers.
Absolutely.
For example?
Absolutely. I mean, back in 2017, when we were trying to convince Kenya to have a farmer database, we were sending people to Malawi for benchmarking to go and see how their national farmer database are. We're sending people to Zambia. We're sending people to Uganda, to Ethiopia. You see,
so we're behind them.
We have Kenya has been traditionally a late adopter on so many initiatives. A late adopter, including now, is when Kenya is trying to build what we call the National Soil Information System.
Yeah.
All the countries around Kenya have a National Soil Information System. Kenya doesn't have. Kenya is trying to have it now. They have had it for years. Now, if you don't have a National Soil Information System, you do not understand your soils. Now, so it's going back and saying, if a majority of the people who produce food for Kenya, we know nothing about them. Neither do we know the soil under which they produce. Okay? We then begin to wade into cloudy data. For example, asking ourselves, how is it that data in the region is showing that Kenyan farmers have the highest use of inputs, the highest use of fertilizer, Kenyan farmers, and yet the lowest yield per acre? Kenyan farmers and Kenyan farms have the lowest yield per acre against highest use of inputs and fertilizer. It tells you that we don't understand our soils. And that now the consequences are coming in. Why is our production lower? Now, to be able to address the issue of smallholder farmers, okay, in production, is first of all, we must look at optimization. Optimization meaning, if they were to produce beyond subsistence, what would it take? And therefore, we encourage them, each one of them, okay? There's over 6 million, 6.9 million of them. We encourage each one of them to produce more than they can eat, they can consume. So if you have your 2 acres, okay, and your 1 acre is giving you 8 bags of maize, what can we do as a country to get you to produce 28 bags of maize?
So
yes, 28 bags of maize. So then we target and say each farm that produces 8 bags of maize should produce 28 bags of maize.
Okay.
Then you pose the question, what will it take? Then you go into what will it take. What will it take is, number 1, improve the soil health. So what does it take to improve the soil health? Okay. Expand extension rapidly, go into farmer soil education, okay, and then go into soil improvements. So massive. This hogwash of fertilizer subsidy isn't working.
No,
Yes.
no.
The DAP hurt the soils more than it helped the soils. It increased acidity on the soils. Now they move to NPK. NPK isn't adding much into the soils because we have politicized agriculture. Instead of looking at agriculture as a vehicle for transformation, a vehicle for growth, we have politicized it. Now, for a country that is food deficient,
Yes.
you see,
Is that what we are?
yes, Kenya is a net food deficient country.
Okay.
And we're not set up for that because, one, we don't have the luxury to look at how our neighbors are producing. Why? Because we have less than 20% arable land. They have massive tracts of arable land. We have less than 20%. We don't have the luxury. Our urgency is different from their urgency because as our population is growing, we have squeezed everything into 20% of the land. 80% of Kenya is arid and semi-arid. Nothing is growing in it. We have camels roaming it and goats, but nothing is growing in it. Countries like Uganda have tracts and tracts of arable land. Yes, they're literally feeding us right now. If they were to stop feeding us, I mean, look at, for example, whenever any president of Tanzania closes the border, we suffer immensely.
Yes. Shortages, price hiking.
We suffer immensely. Even for onions, we suffer immensely. Yeah. See, but when they do, for example, now there's a panic when Tanzanian onions comes into the country, market is messed. Yes, because they flooded the market with the onions and those are good quality. Because they have better soils and better land than we do. We don't have that luxury.
The cost of production is much lower.
So we must go into efficient production, which you call the smart production. We must look at precision and say we cannot afford to be producing at the yields that we're producing now. We must improve or triple those production. If we do that, smallholder farmers will come. We once they have produced, we tell them, look, you focus on production. We will focus on the market. As the farmers are planting, we are setting up aggregation centers. There's nothing that stops government from setting up aggregation centers across all parts of production of this country so that traders can then go and find that produce there and move it to the next level in terms of value addition, processing, and that kind of thing. You see, instead of burdening traders to be the ones to set up aggregation centers, to be the ones to set up collection centers, and all this stuff.
But if nobody's doing it, Charles, that's the thing.
So now the private sector is coming to that space.
Okay.
Yes, to do it, but it's an extra cost. It's into the margins. When I worked with the East River Foods, we had to set up buying centers. For macadamia in mango, across the country, but at our cost. At our cost. And then that what you realize is it adds into your transaction cost and eats into your margins. So at the end of the day, you have less margins because of the investments that you have to put in infrastructure, which you don't need to.
You may never recover because some I'm sure logistics is its own.
Most you never recover. Most you never recover. Yeah, especially in remote places where you have to go farther into the rural areas to set up those, and some of them, you have to rent space and pay monthly, and then send officers to go and get those transactional costs are not necessary. Somebody else can de-risk them, and the person to de-risk them is government.
Let's talk a little bit about ecosystems. Yeah. How do they work? What's an ecosystem? Yeah. How do you build an ecosystem?
So
in agriculture.
yeah. So, for example, I'll give one of the companies that I've liked, I supported in the past, Hello Tractor.
Hello Tractor.
Yes.
Okay.
And Hello Tractor are in the business of increasing mechanization for smallholder farmers.
Is this in Africa or in Kenya or?
In Kenya and yeah, right in Africa. So they're in Kenya, they're in Rwanda, they're in Nigeria.
Okay.
They're moving to other countries.
Okay.
But what they realized is, if we continue to plow and produce the way we produce, one hoe at a time,
Yes.
it would take us a long time to produce food.
Yeah. We may never produce.
Yeah. I mean, what would take you 20 days of work to plow by hoe, by hand, an acre or 2 acres?
Yeah.
You do it in 1 hour with a tractor.
Yes.
So all you need to do is access a tractor, at an affordable. In fact, it saves you 2 things. It saves you cost, because to plow 2 acres, you need about 20 people.
Yeah.
Okay. Paying each of them 300 shillings per day. Yeah. Okay. And feeding them.
And then for a number of days.
And then a tractor will do it within 1 hour. And then you pay less than 4,000 shillings. Yeah. So what then they're doing is looking and saying, how do you get this to happen? Number one, you need farmers who need plowing, who need mechanization. You need tractor owners.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tractor owners. So you need to connect tractor owners to where the farmers are.
Yeah.
They developed a system that then connects them. But then they realized we don't have as many tractors as we need.
Yeah.
So because of this mismatch in the ratio,
yeah.
you need more tractors into the ecosystem.
Yes.
So you need tractor manufacturers to then come into the ecosystem and say, look, hey, there's market here for you. Yeah. We have these many millions of farmers, smallholder farmers, who need mechanized plowing, but we only have this many tractors.
Yeah.
So they say, okay, fine. They say, but then they realize, but tractor owners are selling tractors. They don't give tractors for free.
Yeah.
So they found a financier. And a financier said, look, I can then, if there's a market, show me an aggregation. And they said, these many millions of farmers are waiting.
Okay.
Yes. And they placed requests for mechanization.
Yeah.
And they developed something beautiful called route optimization. And route optimization is they got the map of the country by seasons, and they know this season plowing is here, this season plowing is here, this season plowing. So they already had the route. Mm-hmm. So say, with this route, we can have these many thousands of tractors in operation. Okay. But there are tractor owners, but there's no money. So tractor guys come in, then financiers came in to say, look, we can finance tractor ownership within the same ecosystem, within the same farmers. So get the farmers or get tractor owners, but get the farmers or anybody else who's neither a farmer or a tractor owner to now come into that space and say, if I took a tractor on a loan and I go and plow, Hello Tractor helps me to aggregate work so that I know that with this many acres, with this tractor, if I plow and I pay this much per day, they pay as little as 700 shillings per day for tractor ownership. Within this period, 2 years or so, I will have paid off this tractor. Yeah. And now it's mine, and I will continue to work. Okay? But then now it's looking and saying, but for this to work, for us to increase uptake of tractor ownership and this financing, what else needs to be in place? Government needs to come in, and government needs to say, look, can we zero rate tractor imports? Yeah. Because we want more people.
That's policy.
To now on tractor, and government will make the money on downwards. Yeah. So you begin to see how an ecosystem therefore is building. Yeah. By
bringing all the actors.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. But guess what? You also need tractor operators. So you have to find young people trained as tractor operators. Okay. To now be employed by tractor owners, because the tractor owners were not the one operating. You as Joe, you own a tractor, but you're not the one riding the tractor in the farm.
Exactly.
So with the mushrooming of tractors, also the creation of jobs for tractor operators. Okay. But beyond tractor operators, somebody else needs to aggregate the farmers.
Yeah.
So they employed young salespeople to go find the farmers, convince them of mechanization, and then aggregate them. And they have to say, here in Migori, I have 1,000 farmers waiting for mechanization. Okay. So the person who's aggregated talks to the person who's aggregating tractor owners and say,
Yeah.
I need 3 tractors in Migori in this season, or I need 100 tractors in Migori in this season. Okay.
yeah.
So this season we're moving to Migori. That's where the work is. When they're done, it's another place. It's a Bungoma. So now Bungoma is also plowing. Can we go? I need 1,000 tractors in Bungoma, like that. So that's how the ecosystem got working. It's a beautiful model on how you bring in different actors into a space, for one solution: increased mechanization by smallholder farmers.
Is it happening? It does.
Absolutely.
As we speak.
We tried it with them as we speak right now. We tried it in one year, Joe. In 1 year, they were able to improve mechanization for 50,000 farmers, 50,000 smallholder farmers in 1 year. Right now, they're over 500,000.
Really?
Yes, over 500,000, and that's scratching the surface. In Kenya, remember in Kenya we have over 6.9 million smallholder farmers. So when you're talking about 500,000, the question is, so what happened to the 6.5, the 6.4 million?
But I'm sure it started with one tractor, so it's progressing.
Exactly. And you can imagine if we transformed palm plowing from number of days, over 20 days, to 1 day. Okay, look at that efficiency. Because it's not just efficiency in plowing, it's also efficiency in planting. Okay? So a farmer is able to plant quickly. Now we're beating seasons here, because whereas they would have waited for 2 weeks, and the rains are here, for the farmers to be now that 2 weeks include plowing, planting. You see? Catching up with the seasons, and planting more. What the story that is never told is whereas the smallholder farmers classified people who own 2 acres and below, they do not plow 2 acres. Most of smallholder farmers barely do 1 acre. Most of them do half an acre. Yes. So the 1.5 acres are just lying fallow. Because it is me and my family, we're the ones plowing, and we're using our hands. In some cases, oxen, and in some cases donkey.
And also the cost of planting a half acre is very different from the cost of planting 2 acres.
Exactly.
They cost inputs, seeds, fertilizer.
Exactly. Even though we've seen a proliferation of solutions. So, for example, organizations like One Acre Fund have set up are next to farmers. With their two-panded solutions, with seed. People like my dad have accessed those to plant his 2 acres. So inputs are not necessarily a problem. The problem has been a question of capacity. So my dad and his 2 acres, even if 1 acre gave him the seeds and the fertilizer, and it is him and maybe a neighbor, he won't do 2 acres by himself. So he will restrict himself to 1 acre because that's what he thinks will feed him for that season. So the philosophy that farmers have, people like my dad, is I want to produce stuff to feed me from one season to another season. So he looks at the farmer and says, last season you gave me 4 bags, I ate 2 bags. If I get another 4 bags, So them is survival season to season. They're not producing to go and sell. They want to survive season to season. So inputs, they'll get inputs, and the people like One Acre give them on credit. If you don't have money, take it on credit. We will check it off when you harvest. So they have a barter trade system of saying this input will be worth how many bags of maize when you harvest. Oh, this will be bag. We give you inputs worth 4,000 shillings. So could be a bag of maize when you harvest, give us a bag of maize. Okay, give us a bag of maize when you. So that's how they do it. So it's not a difficult situation of a lack of inputs. NGOs have done a lot of work to bring inputs to farmers, very close to farmers. The question still remains capacity and incentive. Are smallholder farmers oriented to produce surplus or not? They're not oriented to produce surplus. They're still oriented to produce for subsistence, what they and their families can eat. They are stuck on traditional methods. No one is challenging them and disrupting how they produce. Okay, because they're scattered far all over. Most of them are hard to reach. Okay, there is not sufficient investments by government in terms of then improving agricultural production. While Kenya's GDP is 30% agriculture. Kenya, the national government invests less than 5%. It oscillates between 3.3 to 3.5% of the national budget in agriculture. County governments put less than 1% in agriculture.
And this seems to be deliberate, eh? Yet, despite its importance, this is the importance we ascribe to it.
You know, it looks like at some point we accepted as a country that we're food deficient.
Yeah.
And that it looks like because what we can't produce we import.
Yeah.
And our neighbors produce it cheaply. Do you know it's much cheaper to import eggs from Uganda than grow them locally, including chicken. Chicken from Uganda are much cheaper imported into Kenya than rearing chicken locally. Meat, livestock from Tanzania are much cheaper than trying to rear livestock here locally. We seem to have accepted as a country that we're food deficient and therefore we're best importing it.
Hey, Charles. So finally, when you look at your journey, have you seen examples, maybe even on the continent, of things that are working, or even in Kenya? Maybe small. Let's look for small examples. You've talked a lot. I like this Halo tractor.
Yeah.
The thing about aggregating.
Yeah.
What have you seen that has given us hope?
There are many solutions that are working.
Okay.
Innovations.
Yeah.
That are working. One of my favorite ones is in the milk sector. This small company, Savannah Circuit. Savannah Circuit, having looked at milk losses by smallholder farmers, smallholder dairy farmers, invented something they call milk cooling on transit. And milk cooling on transit is when a milk collector goes to farmers, they have a cooler box mounted on a motorbike. This cooler box then allows for milk to be put into a cooling system less than 2 hours after milking. Turns out, after 4 hours after milking, milk begins to go bad. So when a milk is taken to the aggregation centers and they dip in the lactometer, they will realize that it's already going bad. So it's rejected. To address that problem, get the milk from the farm gate, put it straight into the cooler box. It arrives at the nearest cooling center or the nearest cooperative when it's cool. It's not going bad at all. So it addresses the milk losses for the farmers. You see, now that's something that brought a solution that has disturbed Kenya for a long time in terms of milk glut, losing about annually 318 million liters of milk annually, over 14 billion shillings.
That's a loss.
Yes, because of inability to get the milk to the cooling plant in good time
because of the perishability.
Yes, exactly. So this small company is doing that. You know, they are providing solutions into that space. But I've also seen solutions, for example, in Kibera. In Kibera, your friend Kennedy and the water ATMs. And the ability to bring clean water to households that previously had no access to clean water. And in a very efficient manner. If you look at the overhead piping, that prevents damaging, and then the water ATM, so that you cut the cost of water, from 20 shillings per jerrycan to 4 shillings per 20-liter jerrycan. You enable households to not only just get water accessibly and affordably, but to increase their use of water. A household that could only afford five jerrycans per day is now able to use up to 20. Because of the reduction, 5 times reduction in the cost.
Logistics.
Yes.
And
fast. Yes. And it's quality water. It's quality water. Previously, they wouldn't vouch with the quality of water. But now they know that this water is from the pipes. We know where the pipe is from. And So those simple solutions. And there's many of them. Look, for example, my friend Graham Bent and his milk ATMs, trying to, so this guy is Cocoa Fresh. Cocoa Fresh are setting up milk ATMs to take fresh, processed, quality milk, from processors, to communities in the low-income areas that previously would not afford a packet of milk. And the idea is you don't have to have 60 shillings or 40 shillings or 50 shillings to buy milk. Come with your 10 shillings, put it there, and you get the same quality of milk as the one in the packets in the supermarket, except you can now get it at 10 shillings. You buy milk that you need to use at that time in your locality, in the slums. In the slums, those kinds of solutions. Previously people were subjected to untreated milk, raw milk, bad milk because there were no solutions. When you have a milk ATM, okay, you bring quality milk to people who have previously had no access to quality milk at their price, and those are the solutions that I've seen and required to be taken to scale. What is not being said is solutions like that one by Cocoa Fresh, okay, have contributed significantly to a 60% formalization of the milk sector that was previously 30% formal.
Okay.
What happened is through the liberalizations that were created by the Kenya Dairy Board to allow for other actors, mini dairies and mini cooperatives, and milk hubs and milk bars and that kind of thing, it allowed for what they call co-pasteurization. That a lot of milk can now be the people who are set up to provide pasteurization as a service. So a lot of milk that you're now seeing in the market is milk that either is homogenized by over 30 licensed processors or pasteurized by over 67 mini dairies and 200 others. So that then brings quality milk, into the space. What it has done, it has shifted the market from a 30% formal to a 60% formal, 40% informal. And this 40% informal is still coming from when you go to the farmer, the milk that was not taken to the cooperative is then sold to some guy, that's 40, that's below 40%.
But that's a significant reduction.
A significant reduction. Yes, massive reduction, and it's still moving. The more we adopt these co-pasteurization solutions, and also the other thing that must be celebrated is the Kenya Dairy Board offers free licenses for young people for milk bars and mini and milk and dairy hubs.
Is this replicable to other parts of farming? Do you see this happening with tomatoes, for example, or onions?
It should happen. It should happen. What we need to see is government speaking as one.
Okay.
And looking at what are the issues that need to be addressed for young people in terms of job creation. So this whole job creation thing, government needs to begin to say, beyond the traditional, trying to figure out, how to create jobs, which is not working. What are the solutions that can get young people to employ themselves? And these solutions are beyond giving them capital. For example, free licensing is one way to say, if I have a free license and somebody gives me capital, you see, I can now set up. So, but what are these other incentives that can be replicated across? And that's the conversation that ought to be had when you have one government speaking. Yeah.
So after listening to you, I don't know if there's hope or not, but it's but it seems that the initiatives, and there's a lot of there are some positives, definitely. I think what it is our mindset. We have to look at doing things differently, and even as smallholder farmers, we must find a way then to aggregate smallholder farmers. If I got you correctly.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said at the start, let producers produce. But let producers be incentivized by market. Okay? So let you and I and other people who are not in the farms, but who understand how markets work and who understand demand. Okay? Take, for example, if we are importing over close to 300 metric tons of 300,000 metric tons of onions from Tanzania, okay, to be able to plug in the gap because we cannot produce what we need. Why can't you and I then figure and say, how can we incentivize groups of farmers to produce even 200 metric tons? And then we supply this in the market. We plug the import. You see, we then go to the bank or financial institutions, okay, with a proposal. We want the financial institutions to then trust us that if you give us this much, We are then able to incentivize growth, and we will pay you. Our projections are this will be the data that will come from this production. Okay, give us a period. Okay, and then we will be able to pay you back the money. Our financial institutions aren't set up for that conversation just yet, and therefore we're not incentivized to go that route yet. But if we were to go that route, then we'll be able to incentivize production. You see, and get farmers to produce. What we are is we're in a country where people do not want to shake up the status quo. We have to shake up the status quo. Yes,
because they're beneficiaries from a
we have to shake up the status quo. You know, and our systems and our governments must then respond to this status quo. If financial institutions are saying, look, without collateral, without capital collateral, we're not going to give the loan. So what does it take to then get the money? You know, so there has to be a conversation around how to get the money to then incentivize the growth that we need. Okay,
is that happening?
There are some conversations around collateral, alternative collateral. Yes. So, for example, I sit on the board of SOMO. What we do at SOMO Africa is we work with small businesses, and we help them to build transaction history from their trade. So, both from the inventory management and the financial management, we combine those into transaction data. We use that transaction data to then convince the financial institutions, having given these small businesses some small loans and all, and we've seen how they're paying. So we have the repayment patterns, we have their trade history, we have the trade patterns and transaction data. We put that together into a collateral. It's called non-financialized collateral. And then we go to the institutions, like Standard Chartered Bank, and we then convince them that this is collateral by itself. It's data that we can vouch for. We have seen it working. We have seen then the banks responding by saying, yes, because you have vouched for this data, we then can, based on our trust for you, we can lend these small businesses, and we're seeing that happening, and we're seeing that increasing. What needs to happen is that needs to be a conversation at scale, not just a conversation within among us at SOMO.
So how would SOMO then describe itself? You've said the role it does, but how in one line, what is SOMO then?
SOMO is an SME builder.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the word.
Yes.
Okay.
SOMO is an SME builder. Yeah. Yeah. We build small businesses.
Okay.
Right from scratch.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And then we help them through a growth pattern. Yes. We train them on business management. We invest in them, and then we expose them to larger investing. Yes. And growth.
Excellent.
Yes. But we also help them to produce. So we have set up facilities. For example, the Tengeneza na SOMO facility up in Ruiru, where because small businesses need to take the products to the market, those products have to be accredited by the Kenya Bureau of Standards.
Yes.
But because they don't have the facility, we have put up a shared facility. So you come with your product, you have a production line, you produce it, you invite KEBS, KEBS come, they give you certification, you get your sticker, off you go to the market.
So KEBS have already certified that facility or recognized it as a facility.
They have certified it.
I know they certify products, individual products.
Yes.
But a facility too has to be
certified. Absolutely. So we have different production lines within the facility for different kinds of products. Yes. So they have the facility, then they have production lines. So if you come and you just in food, they certify you on the food production line. But we also have non-food production line, for example, soaps and these kinds of things. Yeah.
Textiles.
Yeah. Okay. So they come and assess that. Yeah. And it enables then these small SMEs to then take the products to formal markets, which they would not do before without the certification. Good. Yes. That's a big game changer.
So Charles, you're doing many things then in this whole space.
That's a generalist. That's a generalist.
And building up an ecosystem. Charles, I want to thank you very, very much for your wisdom and your insights. I can listen to you talk all day because for me, I'm looking for a solution being a farmer.
Yeah.
But I think you've provided, quite a number of things and telling us some of the things that are going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Yeah.
There you have it, viewers. We've come to another very exciting episode where Charles has walked us through what he does as a generalist. We've talked about value chain development, the importance of building ecosystems, and we've gotten a few tidbits on how we can change the way agriculture and smallholder farmers work in this country. So look out for the next episode of the Accidental Farmer Podcast, the podcast that brings you the real dirt on farming.